All right, Zatima fans, now I just finished the episodes, and I gotta say, this was a pretty solid week of Zatima. Now, this is for Season 2, Episode 9, The Dinner Diagnosis. And I gotta say, pretty good stuff. Now, I would give the episode, honestly, less than a 10, but I did like the dinner table scene so much that it kind of negates any negative thoughts I have about the episode. And I honestly only have maybe 2 small gripes. But like I said, I think everything else in the episode more than makes up for it. Because originally, after the dinner table scene, I was going to give the episode a solid maybe like a 13. But I will give it a 10 out of 10. So, the episode pretty much starts up with Zach meeting Dr. Reed. Remember, Deja had just gone inside of her apartment after saying that she was going to sue Fatima in regards to, injuring her. And then Dr. Reed pulls up, introduces himself as, I believe, Jackson Reed. And, he and Zach kind of compare cars, and turns out the doctor has an electric car. And they go inside, and he mentions that he's Angela's friend. Zach notices something is up the moment he goes into the house and says to Angela, "Hi, I'm Jackson." "Oh, hi, I'm Angela." And it's like, Zach's like, wait a minute, because if you're Angela's friend, why would you introduce yourself that way? And then Fatima's like, "Hi, I'm Fatima." "Oh, yes, Fatima, nice to meet you." And again, Zach just knows something is off from the moment he steps into the house. And then he introduces himself to Bryce, and then they all sit down for dinner. Now, this is when and I could just, kind of like the barbershop scene in episode 1, I could do an entire video about the dinner table scene because it was that good. Now, basically, everybody's having a good time. This is just like season 1, episode 2, where it is Zach, Bryce, Belinda, Fatima, and Angela. Everybody's having a good time aside from Zach, because he's making, faces at Belinda. And in this situation, he's just, looking at Dr. Reed like, yes, something ain't right. He's looking at Reed. Bryce is drinking. He's living it up. Fatima's laughing. Angela's smiling. And Zach is the only one that's like, So then the doctor, asks if something's wrong because he's quiet. And he's like, well, I don't know. I mean, you're the one asking all these questions. It's like, you're asking about my family and whatnot. And you're asking, Bryce this and, Angela that. So what's going on? Then Fatima realizes that this isn't working, so she reveals this was all a setup in order to get Zach to do therapy. And Zach is rightfully upset about this. Now, I mentioned in the video, what was it, a couple days ago, and even on Twitter, I said, I think this is going to blow up in Fatima's face because she's doing all these underhanded tactics under the guise of, oh, well, I'm just doing it to help Zach. This is all to help Zach. And as a result, well, things played out exactly the way I thought they would. Now, not to jump too far ahead, but I have to admit, I need to mention something that happened in episode 10. Remember, I did a video very recently where I talked about how, Fatima, these manipulation games are going to backfire. And I think I might have said this on social media as well. I said, I think at first, Dr. Reed is going to make some progress. Zach is going to start seeing things from a different perspective. But he is going to slip up and mention Paul. And then that's going to make everything fall apart. That happens in the finale. But like I said, I'll talk about that more in the actual episode review itself. But yeah, for now, the doctor pretty much, confirms, yeah, I am a therapist and whatnot. Now, here's the problem with this. And please correct me if I'm wrong here. But at the ending of episode 2, when Zach and Fatima are in the car, that's when Fatima mentions getting some help. Zach never rejected the idea of going to a therapist. He didn't. So I don't know where Fatima got the idea that Zach would not be open to therapy. Now, I remember, was it episode 6, I think? Episode 5 or 6? Whatever episode it was when Fatima had that nightgown from the 80s on. And she mentioned, like, you know what, Zach? Ever since you ain't been right ever since you went to go see your mother. And I don't think that therapy was mentioned in that particular scene. So we jump to when Paul gives, when Fatima gets the information from Paul about Dr. Reed. And even Angela said, I don't know, Fatima, I don't think you should talk to this doctor that, Paul referred you to, because Zach won't like that. So that's the thing that, okay, I mentioned this on Twitter before I started doing this review, but if I had one nitpick about these two episodes, honestly, there may be two or three, but one of the nitpicks I had during episodes 9 and 10 is that it didn't feel like Fatima got any sort of comeuppance or she got called out. During the dinner table scene, Dr. Reed told something about everybody except Fatima. It felt like she was exempt from this entire sit down. That doesn't mean Dr. Reed won't appear later on in the series. I mean, I haven't looked on IMDb or anything else, so to be completely honest, I don't know what's going down during the back half of season 2. I honestly do not. I haven't seen any episode titles or synopsis. So, honestly, I would like if the doctor did come back. And I'm not saying that, go in on Fatima, tell us something. But just honestly evaluate her, because I felt like she just sat by while everything was going on in these episodes. But in reality, this is kind of her fault, because she was the one that arranged this entire thing. She has never sat down and said, Zach, remember what I talked to you about in the car? I think that you should speak to somebody, okay? Because I'm not qualified to, help you through this, but I will be here with you through this. So please, can, we look into it to find somebody. She was the one that arranged this entire dinner. So let's get to what the conversation starts. He pretty much reads Bryce in terms of, hey, I don't know your background or anything, but, it seems like you misread the signals that Zach was giving. And Angela, he just, shit. I don't think he went on Angela the way he did on Zach, but at the same time, he doesn't know that much about her, but he does know from the makeup, the hair, the designer clothing, it's all to hide insecurities. But she's a beautiful woman. She's very, true to herself, and she knows what she's about. But at the same time, she has a lot of insecurity. She hides behind her facades of, the lady things, like the dresses and the makeup and whatnot. And when it comes to Zach, not knowing his father, the issues with his mother, but more specifically the father's situation, because of that, he formed strong male bonds with, people from this, guys from the street, cousins, friends and whatnot. So when Bryce came in and, did a few nice things for him, you had a bond. But the problem is, Bryce, you just completely misread the quote-unquote signals that Zach was giving off. And, hey, he tried to lock this with you. Just make sure that doesn't really happen again. So in my mind, Dr. Reed was saying, like, hey, Bryce, you and Zach can still be cool, but just don't do that shit you were trying to do with him before, and y'all should be okay. And then from there, that's really it. And then Zach looks over at Fatima, and it's like, so you arrange this whole thing about me fixing my problems, acting like you don't have any problems. No, that's not it at all, Zach. I have problems, and well, why don't you speak your truth and whatnot? Like, how come you talking about, the doctor's talking about me not saying what's on my mind? What about Fatima? No, I do. It's just that I have to process things, and because if I didn't, then I wouldn't be here. And I'm just like, Fatima, that is just bullshit, and you know it. It really is. And then the conversation shifts gears to the whole, well, how come, you get to process things, but then I can't process things. I have to talk about it right now. That's just, I don't want to be too harsh, because I feel like if Dr. Reed does show up, he's going to evaluate Fatima from that conversation. Because remember, Dr. Reed originally just wanted Zach and Fatima to come in for an appointment so he can observe how they communicate. And I hope that he took some mental notes on what went down at this dinner table. But, the good doctor basically says, look, I've said my piece. Basically, from what I can tell, if you all, and this is something that I love, because I've said this a number of times about Zach and Fatima, specifically Fatima, and Karen as well. You all speak but it's really from a place of hurt. Nobody really talks about how they are feeling. I've said this many times. Fatima doesn't listen to Zach. She listens to respond, to react. She doesn't listen to how her man is feeling. Now, that's not to say Zach doesn't do the same thing as well. I'm not omitting Zach from that, but I've noticed this a lot more with Fatima. Because of the fact, why do I notice that a lot more? Because she used to listen to hear. She used to listen to understand and comprehend so she can communicate with Zach. That's not to say that both or one party or both didn't have hissy fits. Yes, that happens. But at the same time, they would eventually sit down and, work out whatever is going on. So then the doctor gets up to leave. Because originally Zach, said, you know what, I ain't doing this. But then that's when Fatima had to reveal what was going on. So then from there, we kind of skip forward later on in the night. The doctor was the first one to leave. And then Angela and Bryce had left as well. So Zach is on the couch. Fatima's kind of cleaning the kitchen. Tony gives Zach a call to come down to play basketball. But he's like, is Nate there? Yeah, he's down there. Well, I don't want to talk to him. So he doesn't want to go. Well, then he, was kind of talked into it. So then from there, Fatima's taking out the trash. And Zach's like, hey, you can ask me to take that out, right? And then it's like, Zach, I don't want to argue about it. It's like, you seen the trash that need to be taken out. But, okay, fine, take the trash out. So she goes outside, calls Angela, and Bryce is actually over there. So it's like, hey, girl, just call me when you two have finished talking. And honestly, I am stupid because I literally skipped over this part of the dinner conversation. Bryce basically reveals his truth because Angela speaks up first, because at first Zach is like, fine, let me talk. Then Angela's like, no, you two work things out about who's saying what. We'll go first. Then Bryce reveals his whole thing about being a swinger and having a big woman fetish. And this dude, I'm not judging, but damn, Tyler just really changed up this guy's personality. At first, he seemed a little jittery and whatnot, but a nice guy. But now it's like, oh, I get it. As we've learned more about Bryce, more of the flamboyant personality is showing. So it kind of seems a bit over the top compared to how he was before. I don't know if that's honestly, that's kind of the only way I can describe it, because it's like he went from, okay, this dude, is just a jittery guy, but at the same time, he's cool. But then as time went on, you notice that there are more flamboyant ways to how he spoke, to how he, his physical body language. So he pretty much like, I need this. I'm like, hey, look, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I got my things, I'm kind of into, but to be honest, I wouldn't describe it in the way that Bryce was. Bryce is like, you just looked at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? How much did you have to drink? What's going on here? Also, I have to laugh because Angela, and this goes into later on in the episode, and then in episode 10, it's ironic that she was the one to tell Fatima to keep her options open, but now that Bryce is asking her to have an open mind, she does not want that at all. I know the circumstances are different, Fatima not just keeping eyes on Zach despite the fact they're engaged, and Angela, it's kind of weird. She talks about threesomes, but whatever. So in any case, that's pretty much Bryce's truth. So over at Angela's house, her and Bryce are sitting down talking, and he apologizes for how things went, but honestly, it's just the way it was supposed to be, and you can't be mad about it. I guess you could argue, and I don't want to get into the subject, but kind of on bruh in regards to Darla and Greg going off for not knowing that she was a trans woman. And then it's the question of, when you are dating someone, and notice that Angela mentioned girlfriend, so they were actually together. At what point do you think it's fair to let your potential love interest know a certain thing about you? Like, if you are a trans person, if you are of a certain orientation. I mean, yes, there's always a whole thing about, well, I just wanted to get to know you first, and then, but I think that in a lot of situations, I can see why people would feel betrayed, because think of it this way, from Angela's point of view, she was Bryce's one and only. But it isn't about him being a swinger. It isn't about him being gay yet not really liking labels. I think what really hurt was the fact that Angela was really into this guy, but he tried to make a move on Zach. So I honestly don't think it was a matter of because Bryce made a move on another guy. It's just that Bryce made a move on another person in general. It's just the fact that it's her best friend's fiance that takes us to a new level of, okay, this is just jacked up. So from there, she lets Bryce know that they won't work out and that they can be friends. And it's like Bryce is trying to hang on to something that clearly isn't there. And, he's like, well, hey, you're more than enough for me. But it's like, yeah, Bryce, but I don't want to keep you from what you clearly need. I need you. No, it's not going to do it for me. But hey, if you said you were into, I think she says this in episode 10. If it was like me, you, and another guy. Wait, you mean like a threesome? Yeah, but you couldn't be feeling all up on his butt and whatnot. But I don't know. So yeah, there's obviously a difference between swinging and threesomes. But she asks for her key back and then he leaves. But then we find out in episode 10 he actually didn't leave. Okay, so then we go over to the basketball court. Zach, smokes Nathan and Tony. And then an interesting question is brought up. Hey man, what would you do if Connie came over to your house? And my first instinct is Zach should have said somebody's going to get shot. Enough said, somebody's going to get shot. So then he leaves. And then Fatima talks to... Actually, I'm sorry, I skipped a part. Zach is heading downstairs with his, bag because he's going to play b-ball. And Fatima's like, so we aren't going to talk about this? And I'm thinking to myself, but Fatima, Zach was just sitting in the living area. You were cleaning the kitchen. And when he asked about the trash, you said, I don't want to argue. So then when he's about to leave, now all of a sudden, can we talk? We're not going to talk about this? Fatima kind of fell off. And look, I know there are those, you hate Fatima. I'm not hating on Fatima, but I feel like the writing for her character was really inconsistent in these episodes. The acting was good, but I just felt like the scenes didn't... It felt like they were... Okay. Imagine taking like 18 puzzle pieces from 3 different puzzles. And then you force them together to make a picture. Yeah, they kind of fit together, but you have to like punch and, smash them together to even fit. But when you look at the finished product, it's just a messy photo. That's kind of how I felt about Fatima's personality in these 2 episodes. It didn't really work for me. It's like the scenes where she was in don't match it up at all. It's like she's, kind of nervous in one scene, but then, confrontational in another. She's emotional and caring in one scene, but then she's resentful in another. It just didn't make sense. So then she brings up the fact that her parents want, him to come, want the both of them to come over to dinner the next night. And like I said, nah, that ain't gonna work, because think of it from Zach's perspective. He just got quote unquote diagnosed by Fatima's tricks during one dinner, and now he's gonna go over to another dinner to be judged again. This is just like the whole letter shit from Sistas. So he says he's not gonna go, but he's like, look, can I go play ball now? So then he just leaves. Then she calls Angela, and she's fed up because of the fact that she's tired of not being able to find good men, yada yada yada. And you can kind of tell, like, it kind of gave off the Karen vibe Karen vibe from Sistas, where, things aren't going well. Misery loves company. So because Angela isn't happy, she's kind of telling Fatima, well, hey, I don't know, maybe you want to rethink things with Zach. And Fatima's like, you know what? I'm desperate. I'm desperate to make this work. I'm desperate. And it's like, Fatima, you keep calling out about being desperate, but yet again, you aren't looking at yourself, at what you're doing wrong. Yes, Zach has messed up, but in your mind, the whole thing with Paul was nothing, despite the fact that Zach is clearly right about him wanting you, but you've never admitted to that. All right, so then at the game, yeah, I already talked about this. Smoked him. What would you do if Connie came to your house? He leaves. So Fatima's reading a book in bed, and also on the phone, she tells Angela, yeah, he went to play basketball. This late at night? How do you know he ain't with another woman? Oh, I wish he would come up in here and smell like soap and water, knowing that he probably washed up, and it'll be crazy. So as soon as he gets home, what does he do? He gets ready to get in bed. And Fatima's like, oh, you better shower. Well, no, I'm only coming in here so you can smell me so you know I ain't been out there with another woman. Zach, I ain't policing you. See what I mean? You say one thing to Angela, but then you do a completely other thing with Zach. Because you know good and well if he would have came in there smelling like Irish Springs, pow, 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 like Tasha Mack. So then it gets into an argument about her stubbornness because there's a loud banging on the door. And instead of going to answer, they have a back and forth. Zach is like, hey, it sounds like somebody could be banging that loud late at night because it's an emergency. So I'm the man of the house. Let me do it. It's like, look, you've been single for so long that you refuse to let another man help you. And then it shifts gears to the whole Paul thing, fixing the car. That's why you didn't call me in order to help with the car. That's why you got old boy to do it. And then they keep arguing. And then they go downstairs. Who is it? Who is it? See, you gotta have bass in your voice for Fatima, so there's a little bit of sexism and male ego there. But at the same time, answer the door. Who is it? It's Jeremiah. Nigga, take care of your mother. And then Gladys comes in there all beat up, can barely stand up. And then that's the end of the episode. I'm like, what the hell kind of ending is that? So, yeah, my biggest gripes were the whole thing about Fatima and just the fact that she really doesn't get comeuppance at all. So that's pretty much it. All right, well, this was a solid episode. I will definitely go back and rewatch the Dr. Reed scene because it was some good stuff. So my overall thought, Dr. Reed, he needs to be on Sistas to diagnose the women on that show. I know he's supposed to be, specifically catered to talking to black males, but damn. He spoke to a black woman and is Bryce Asian, right? Well, an Asian guy he doesn't even know like that, but he pretty much spat out facts. And that's that. I love the episode. Yeah, despite my little gripes here and there, I love the episode. This was some good stuff. So, like and subscribe, follow me on social media. Links are in the description, and I will catch you in the next one.